that third game away right now.
Sideboard cards will certainly play a role here. You see Lee's hand right now. He's going to keep, looks like just a one-lander with a bunch of one-drops, most notably Legion's Landing. I'm curious to see where he will start as he plays a Hallowed Fountain untapped. You're going to fall down to 18. And I like starting on a landing, something we didn't see earlier. Yeah. Brian, I can let you get into why, because this is an important card.
Yeah, Legion's Landing is just very powerful against the control decks because not only does it give you the 1/1, that's not really a big deal, but the key thing is that it gives you the enchantment that remains in play that allows you to flip into Adanta the First Fort and just continue to generate more threats. Your opponent may have, their removal spells for individual creatures, but they can't kill your land very frequently.
No second land there for Li Shiqian, so we're going to go back over to Luis Salvatto at this stage of things. It's going to be a Thought Eraser. That's going to resolve not underneath the most pressure at this stage because of the missed land drop. You're going to see a hand there with Snubhorn Sentry, History of Benalia, Law Rune Enforcer. That's the new one, along with Tithe Taker and Venerated Loxodon. Oldies but goodies.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting options here. He has the Law Rune Enforcer is the only castable card, thanks to the mana situation. He could take the Venerated Loxodon to prevent an explosive board being generated, but does decide to take the Law Rune Enforcer. And I think part of the reason for that is actually looking at his hand, one of his sideboard cards that's there. He has the God Eternal Kefnet in his hand. And that, looking at your opponent's hand, knowing, oh, well, you have no way to get rid of this big flyer, means that he can actually just block these small creatures and try to keep himself afloat that way.
Second land has been drawn, and it looks like he might be going the old Snubby instead of Tithe Taker. I'm a little surprised by that.
Yeah, that's particularly interesting to me because not only is it just not mana efficient, playing the Tithe Taker would use his 2 mana, get him more power in play rather than 0. It's not like he's holding up mana for anything, and also. Yeah, I'm just trying to parse why you would choose to play the Snubhorn Sentry here in particular.
So you can make the argument, right, of you're bluffing Spell Pierce with this mana open because you haven't seen the card that was drawn. You're leaving him Hallowed Fountain. The big question for me is what are you Spell Piercing on 3?
Well, you just got Thought Erasered.
You did. You did get Thought Erasered, and your draw step was...
a land.
It was a land. So Salvatto's working with perfect information.
Yeah,
so you're not bluffing
anything.
Yeah, so you're not actually bluffing anything. Maybe a misstep there from Li Shiqian. We'll have to see because Snowporn on this battlefield not particularly good. So the Legion's Landing token, that little vampire is going to finish off to Fairy Time Raveler. I would be shocked if we don't see History of Benalia this turn because we've got to work towards the city's blessing. And so there is the powerful enchantment. That's going to be 2 permanents. We're getting a little bit closer for old Snubby.
Yeah, definitely drawn out of this slow start pretty well with the 2 additional land, but we see the God Eternal Kefnet does come down. 4/5 flying creature with a pretty powerful passive ability as well, and there's no way for Li Shiqian to remove this right now. So
there's no way to get the 4/5 off the battlefield. So here's the plan.
You can build a big board.
You can build a big board, and that's exactly what he's going to work towards doing. Step 1 is this Glacial Fortress. That should be permanent number 10 for City's Blessing to make the Snubhorn into a 3/3. So you see our little dinosaur friend is ready to get into the attack zone against a 4/5. Not a favorable fight for the Snubhorn. However, 3 creatures are eligible to attack, which is important for Legion's Landing the longer this game continues to go. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Li Shiqian actually working towards transforming that land, which will give him additional mana to play a lot of spells this particular turn. But there are a lot of decisions to be made on this turn. It's not as easy as I'm trying to make it sound.
And neither was his previous turn, just sort of thinking back. I think that the Snubhorn Sentry gave him a little bit more resilience to Cry of the Carnarian.
Absolutely.
There's only a single copy that is in the sideboard of Luis Salvatto's deck. But I think that Li Shiqian was trying to position himself such that he had at least a board that wasn't completely wiped if it happened to be there for Salvatto.
What else is also very interesting about this turn too, Brian, is that it's not as simple as just attacking and maybe throwing your Snubhorn away to transform the Legion's Landing. You can make the argument of, I play Tithe Taker, I play Dauntless Bodyguard, I play Venerated Loxodon, all my stuff's in the battlefield, and if you don't have Kaya's Wrath, I don't really care about that 4/5. I can overwhelm it and still transform Legion's Landing. So Lee is thinking about a lot of things. Maybe he overthought the last turn, and he's thinking a ton on this turn because there's a lot to take into account here.
Yeah, definitely going through all the possible permutations. And even if you do decide, okay, I'm going to play Venerated Loxodon, what are you buffing with your Venerated Loxodon?
Absolutely.
What are you tapping to put +1/+1 counters on with the Convoke?
So it looks like we might be going to combat. Okay, so we are. So everybody's going to get into the attack zone. There's your transformation of Legion's Landing into a Danto the First Fort. Unsurprisingly, God Eternal Kefnet's going to eat our favorite dinosaur, so 3 damage is going to come through. Salvatto's going to fall down.
Maybe.
Man, maybe it is.
I'm more of a Galta fan.
Yeah, well, to each their own. Here is Tithe Taker. This is going to be a Dauntless Bodyguard, and conveniently that means there's plenty of mana available and creatures to convoke the Venerated Loxodon. So everything's on the battlefield. All these creatures are getting a little bit larger, and Tithe Taker's got relevant text, and History of Benalia is going to go off next turn. Kaya's Wrath would be a really good draw.
And
not quite it.
Teferi. So Tyrant Scorn or Teferi. There's two different Teferis that could be played here. You can play Tyrant Scorn and Small Teferi,
yes,
which allows him to bounce something and then kill something with the Tyrant Scorn, or just bounce, depending on what he's going to be targeting.
And assuming his mana cooperates, which I believe it will in this instance. Yeah, so there's a swamp.
Yes. Yeah, he has 2 blue-white lands, 2 blue-black lands. So Teferi Time Raveler will come down. I expect that we will see this bounce.
The bounce question is interesting, right? Because you have to take in History of Benalia's Chapter 3 into the equation. So I think it's easiest to bounce the Knight tokens.
Yeah.
Godless Shrine, the draw off of the Teferi minus activation. Then Tyrant Scorn is actually something that you're going to want to play on your turn.
Oh,
no.
Dear. Yeah, the Tithe Taker means that Tyrant Scorn is not playable during Li Shiqian's turn.
A misstep.
So the tax, perhaps a misstep there, because that will prevent him from being able to take down anything from Li Shiqian here.
And you are free to play Gideon's Blackblade now, too, because Dovin's Veto also cannot be cast. A surprising misstep from your reigning player of the year, but a misstep nonetheless. Here is a Gideon Blackblade, powerful new Planeswalker.
Now you can give something indestructible. Can potentially make the one of the creatures he wants to attack in with indestructible, so there's no opportunity for Kefnet to block and kill it.
Might be very attractive to keep this Tithe Taker alive. It looks like it is. So Tithe Taker is indestructible at this stage. We're going to be going on into the attack step. Oh,
all of them.
That's where they should always go, people. Right to the face. No, boo! Leave that Teferi alone.
Well, so interestingly, there has to be a block on a 5 attack creature, rather. I think this is just lethal, period.
I think we are looking at lethal, right? Because I think Salvatto is coming to. He's coming to realization of the mistake that he has made.
Yeah,
that is it,
wow,
everybody.
So, I do feel like that was a pretty big misstep from Salvatto, not using his Tyrant Scorn on his own turn, allowing himself to be taxed out by the Tithe